Foreman, thanks for talking to us today. Where were you born?
I was born in Grafton on the north coast of New South Wales in 1923.
Right.
And came to Sydney when I was 4 years old, actually.
And was that to Surry Hills?
Yeah, to Strawberry Hills, Goodlet Street. Number 17 Goodlet Street it was.
What are your earliest memories of that place?
That place itself? Well, it was a little single-fronted house with a long hall and
Sorry.
phones and 3 bedrooms, I think, a dining room, kitchen. I remember the old galvanised iron bath was in the laundry out the back, and at the back of the house itself was a laneway where you could bring a car into the backyard through the laneway. And opposite was Anthony Hordern's stables, where they stabled their horses for their delivery, whatever you call them. They were trucks, carts or something, whatever they were then. And yeah, that was...
Was it a timber house or brick?
No, it was a brick house, yeah, brick house. Still there, still looks very much the same. I went down and had a look at it in recent years, and still there. But opposite, of course, has all changed with the units and so forth opposite, where the old stables used to be.
What are your earliest memories of life there at Surry Hills?
Oh, I can remember mostly our house was always pretty busy because we had relations or friends practically staying with us nearly all the time, and there was quite a lot of humorous things that happened, you know. I remember a couple of chaps from Grafton who were friends of my parents, and they were staying with us, and one had a girl chasing him that he wasn't real keen on, and she came around to the house one night and knocked on the door and was wanting to know these 2 chaps, their nicknames were Hooter and Slippery. Funny. I always remember these nicknames. And this woman was looking for Hooter. And his brother went to the door and said, "No, he's not here." And I rushed out and said, "Yes, he is. He's hiding behind the door." But I know that there's lots of things like that, you know, humorous things happen. We had always had a friend from Soul Brothers Circus, Jack Soul, always stayed with us. He was a friend of my mum and dad when he was in Sydney and for the Sydney show and so forth. And he used to bring sometimes some show people with him. That one in particular was a chap named Mix and Lean, and he'd turn somersaults up and down the footpath and that sort of thing. And we used to play marbles in the back lane with the family, and and my uncle had an old car that used to play up, and I can always remember him getting very angry with the car when he couldn't get it to go. But yeah, that's and I used to collect bottles in the vacant allotment where later was built the sports arena, the cycling track, which has since been demolished and is now housing, from what I can gather. And I used to collect bottles up there in my billy cart and sell them, so forth.
Who would you sell them to?
Oh, there used to be what they call a bottle-o, come around and buy the bottles off you.
Did a lot of kids do that?
Yeah, a lot of kids collected bottles and sold them to the old bottler.
What did you do with the money?
Oh, just kept it for ice creams or lollies or something like that. And,
what brought your family to Surry Hills from Grafton? What did your father do?
Well, my dad was a gas fitter in Grafton, and he had to leave the job because the gas was playing up with his health. And he came down to Sydney to get work, and he got a job at the Eveleigh railway workshops. He was a labourer there all his life, actually. Worked at the workshops in Redfern. And
that would have been the late 20s, would it have been?
23, 27 when we came to Sydney. Yeah, it'd be the late 20s when he started there. And,
was he able to keep his job in the Depression?
Yes, he was able to keep his job. It was restricted. They worked, I think, 3 weeks on and 1 week off, and that's because being like a government job it was with the railways, and I'm pretty sure it was 3 weeks on and 1 week off right through the Depression.
I mean, a lot of kids there would have in Surry Hills would have had their families out of work.
Yeah, I guess they would, although I don't recall a lot of that or any hardships they might have had with that, you know. I started school there at St Saviour's Church. I think it's Young Street, St Saviour's Church, and they had an infants and primary school there. And I started there, and strangely enough, my cousin who was living with us was the teacher there, and I was in her class. And I could never sort of bring myself to call her Miss Baker at school. I used to call her by her first name, which was Pearl, and she objected to this in front of the other kids. I just used to sing out, "Hey," when I wanted her. But I noticed the old church now has still got the building at the back that was the school. I think it's a community child minding or set up or something now. But I noticed last time I was in there, the sign was still on the building, Infants and Primary School. Still there after all these years.
With all these people staying in your house, it was a fairly large house then?
Yeah, it was 3 bedrooms from what I can recall, and a pretty big house, long, very long house, a long hall.
Did you have any brothers and sisters?
No, but only one. And
you had lots of family around?
Yeah, always there was lots of uncles and aunties and cousins and that sort of thing staying with us. Seemed to be, as far as I was concerned, that seemed to be the norm in those days.
From what you knew of other families around there, were there always they mostly had extended families, or?
Yeah, I think they did. And one neighbour was the Douglas family. They were a pretty big family. There was about 3 girls and 2 boys, and they were very nice, very friendly. There was always a close community feeling with people in that area, I found, and I've found it to be likewise since I've been back there. Matter of fact, my last job was in the same area, and when I walked around, the people still seemed to have the same friendly feeling towards one another, you know, as I walked about in the lunch hour. But there was a strong feeling of comradeship in the families, both our neighbours. I only sort of can remember the immediate neighbours each side, and the lady on the other side was a bit of a rough diamond, but she'd give you a last 2 shillings if you wanted, you know, if you were really stuck. She was that sort of a person. I just can't recall her name now.
What brought people together like that? What contributed to that sense of feeling?
Well, I don't know. It might have been, well, it was, you know, the depression sort of thing, I guess, kept people close, brought people close together, and more or less wanting to help one another. I think that was the main thing.
So how would you describe your family?
Oh, my mum and dad were a very, both their families, like, were always a very close family. And my mum and dad were a very loving couple, and always sort of passed that sort of thing on to me. My mum's family and my dad's family, they all sort of came from the north coast, around Grafton, and they were all very close. There was, my dad had 3 sisters, 2 brothers, and there was 6 in the family. And my mother's similar. She had a lot of sisters and 2 brothers, and we always went to Grafton every year for a holiday, and in the old steam train. It seemed to take forever to get there.
Were they religious people?
Not highly religious, but I'd say Christian ideals.
Were they Catholic?
No, Church of England. And
were they actively involved in the church?
No. But they were the sort of people that sort of lived by a Christian code of helping one another and that sort of thing.
Were they politically involved?
My dad was, yes. Yeah.
What?
Well, my auntie, who lived in Bourke Street, she was a member of the East Sydney Labor Association at the time, and my dad was always interested in politics and that, and later on he used to drive his old car, take people to the polling booths and that sort of thing they used to do in those days. Have a sign on their cars if anyone wanted to vote, they'd take them to the polling booth and take them home again and that sort of thing.
Did he ever get actively involved? Was your father ever more actively involved in the Depression, or was he able to support some of the unemployed workers, say the unemployed workers movement, or some of the party activities?
No, he was never in any associations like that. He was just, I suppose, a real Laborite, and followed that sort of thing, Jack Lang and so forth.
In your family, you said it was a very loving family. What sort of discipline was used?
I wasn't greatly disciplined threatened in any way with anything. I was just sort of, just told the right and the wrong sort of thing, But if I did do anything wrong, I was never beaten or anything like that.
What was considered to be naughty? What would be considered if you were being a bit of a ratbag?
Oh, I suppose to more or less run around the streets and probably, get mixed up with any so-called wrong people and that sort of thing. But there could have been, I suppose, some kids that, could have been a bit rough and that sort of thing. But,
were there kids you weren't allowed to play with?
No, I really wasn't. the next door neighbour, there were some children on one side, and one was a bit of a larrikin, the older brother, because he was much older than myself, and the young ones in there that I used to play with. And I remember one day his younger brother was in playing with me in the yard, and he sang out over the fence that he'd been shot and he had to come inside. And we found out later that what he did was just painted some red ink on himself and said he was shot with the BP gun to get his brother home out of our place. So, you know, there were some larrikins, but I was never restricted from playing with his brother and that sort of thing.
Were you expected to contribute to the family?
What?
Or like collecting bottles or anything. Were you expected to contribute in any way, like
financially?
Yeah, or gathering wood, or
no. Any money that I collected, like I got from collecting bottles, I was allowed to keep as pocket money, which it wasn't all that much money really. It was only pennies, you know, you'd get.
Did you have to do things like go scrounging for coal or wood? Because you would have had wood-fired. Did you have wood-fired stoves?
Yeah, it was a wood-fired stove. No, we never I never had to do anything like that. Well, I suppose if we went for a walk through that area where we used to collect the bottles, if we found any pieces of wood and that, we'd take it home. But it wasn't a job to go out and find wood or find fuel of any kind, no.
Was your family, was it relatively well off in comparison to other families in that neighbourhood? No,
I don't think so. No, we were never what you'd call well off. My dad was always on labourer's money, which was the minimum wage. And,
you don't. And that was so for most of the people in the area. They were comfortable then. There wasn't was there any poverty or?
No, I wouldn't say any. You know, like destitute sort of people in that street that I can remember. No.
And this is the 20s, isn't it? Really before the Depression.
Yeah, it's just 27, I'd say, when we first came there, and we were there till I was another 4. I was there. Well, till about 31, I guess.
Well, that's the Depression.
Yeah, the Depression had started then. Yeah.
Well, what effect did the Depression have there?
Oh well, it made people aware of the fact that they had nothing. You know, they didn't have much, and if you had a job, you weren't on clover even if you had a job. You know, it was as I said, the dad went 3 weeks on and 1 week off, so that meant you had to live 4 weeks on 3 weeks' wages, on the minimum wage. But we were lucky that he had a job and worked right through the Depression.
Was that 3 weeks on, 1 week off?
Yeah.
Right. Because people on relief work got 1 week's work and 2 weeks off, and they had to live 3 weeks on 1 wage, I think.
Yeah, no, well he worked 3 and had 1 off, from what I can remember, yeah, at the railway.
What effect did the Depression have on the community?
Oh, it made them feel pretty depressed, I think, you know. They were really sort of worried, I think, where the next sort of shilling was coming from. And I suppose the threat was always there that those that had a job, that how long would it last, you know.
Did people support each other?
Yeah, I'm pretty sure they did, and that's from what I can remember. They were very supportive of one another. As I said, that our neighbours would do anything for you, you know. You'd help, and of course we'd help them if they were needed help.
Can you remember any evictions?
No, I can't. No.
So there's no problem with landlords?
No, not that I know or heard of, no. I remember a robbery at our place. My uncle, who was living with us at the time, he was well, I suppose you'd say like a travelling salesman. He used to sell pictures and smoker stands and things like that for a company called Gay and Chippendale, I think it was. And he used to always take his money in once a week that he used to collect. You know, they'd sell these things on time payment to somebody for a bob a week or something, 2 bob a week, and he used to collect the money, and he used to take his money in once a week to the head office. And I can remember he said to my mum this particular day, I got a bit too much money, a bit extra money this week. He said, I think I'll take it in today, which was a day earlier than he normally did. And that afternoon our house was broken into. Whether it was somebody that knew his movements and that sort of thing, we don't know.
Well, they never got the money.
No, they never got that money. No, they got a few other things out of the house, some clothing and so forth.
Was crime a problem in that neighbourhood?
No, there was a lot of talk about razor gang and all this sort of thing, but I never saw anything like that at all.
Well, what are these razor gangs?
Well, they were just real gangs that, you know, toughed and attacked people and that sort of thing. And
anybody or only their own?
No, I think anybody, from what I heard about them, but I never saw any evidence of it. Yet Surry Hills in those days was sort of known to be like a haunt for the razor gang, as they called them. They must have got their name from the slashing people with razors, I suppose.
What did your family do for fun?
Oh, mainly I suppose we'd just go on a picnic or something like that, or the pictures, the movies. The picture house was quite close, down Cleveland Street, I think, at the time. And,
where would you go for the picnics?
Oh, probably out to the beaches and that sort of thing. And
eastern suburbs?
Yeah. Like Maroubra or somewhere like that, you know.
The whole family would go?
Yeah.
And where would you go to the pictures?
At the movie theatre, you know, I think it was in Cleveland Street. There was one there. And we used to go there quite regularly.
Was that with the other kids from the neighbourhood?
No, mostly with the family. I'd go there, yeah.
In the evening, what would be a typical evening at your house? What would that be like?
Crikey, that's a bit hard for me to remember.
Did you have your main meal in the evening?
Oh yes, yeah. We had always had our hot main meal in the evening, and probably listen to a radio or something like that after tea and that sort of thing. Wash up, help wipe up and that.
So, the main meal, what would be a typical evening meal?
Oh, I think we nearly always had some meat and vegetables, you know.
Dessert?
Probably, yeah, dessert, yeah. My dad was a great lover of rice, because he used to, when he was, before he came to Sydney, he used to row for sport on the Clarence River. And he always used to say he trained on rice. He'd have a big bowl of rice before a race. So I think rice pudding was a favourite sweet.
What about your midday meal? What would that be usually?
Oh, I really can't recall a lot. When I went to school, of course, it was just sandwiches, you know.
What would you have in a sandwich then?
Oh, possibly some meat or cheese, that sort of thing.
You didn't go
Bit
with
of fruit.
dripping?
No. I never recall having bread and dripping. I always used to hear my dad say when he was young they used to, but no.
Did your father like his work at Eveleigh?
Yeah, well, I wouldn't say he was overawed by it, you know, but he seemed to enjoy most of the work that he did there. He learnt a little bit from watching the tradesmen and that sort of thing, and was always a good handyman himself at doing things, you know. Was always able to mend our own shoes and that sort of thing himself, and was always able to do any odd jobs around the place. And he learnt a lot, as he said, from just watching the tradesmen in the workshops, because mainly his job was just driving the little industrial truck around the workshops, carrying the equipment from one part of the workshop to the other. And he did drive what they call the railway ambulance for a while, like anyone that was hurt in the workshops anywhere and they had to be transported to hospital. He used to drive the ambulance and take them to the hospital and that. He wasn't a first aid man, but he was just a driver.
Would people get hurt often?
Oh, I think they did, yeah. I think there was quite a lot of accidents in the workshops.
What can you remember of your mother's working day?
Oh, only just about the house itself, you know, the keeping the house clean and tidy and the cooking and washing, that sort of thing. That's all my mum ever did. She never worked at all, other than the domestic work, which was quite enough, I say, in those days around the house.
Would that keep her going, working all day?
Oh yeah, just about, yeah. She used to find herself busy most days, sewing. She used to like sewing and mending, you know.
Was she happy, or did you feel that she was like overworked?
Oh no, I wouldn't say, no, I'd say it was always a happy household, yeah.
And your father, he was happy?
Yeah, oh yes, yeah. Follow the football and so forth.
Who were your friends? Getting to the kids in the neighbourhood, who were your friends?
Well, only the immediate neighbours, really. That's all that I ever mixed with. I didn't sort of wander too far away to play with anybody, but they were just the immediate neighbours.
Well, what did you and your friends do? What did the kids do together?
Oh, we just used to play normal sort of games that kids play, you know, like hidings and, as I said, marbles. We used to draw a big ring out in the lane at the back of the house and play marbles, and over weekends the adults used to join in too with the marbles. We'd play marbles together.
Play for keeps?
Oh yeah. Get upset when you're lost.
Were there any fights in the neighbourhood?
No, I don't recall a lot of fights, no.
And did you go off with your friends elsewhere, away from just your home? Did you?
No, I didn't. No, I kept close to the home, yeah, all the time.
Can you remember any adventures that you had in Surry Hills?
No, Not really, no.
You were fairly young, weren't you?
Yeah.
Were 8 when you left there.
Yeah, it was only, from about 4 to 8, I'd say.
Did you have toys or books as a child?
Yeah, I had toys that I played with, like train and cars and that sort of thing. And the normal sort of story books, fairy stories and things like that.
Can you remember
That my
any?
cousins that used to give them to me. No, not offhand. I remember a doll that I had, a Kewpie doll, celluloid doll, that my dad won in a hoopla at a carnival, and I can always remember that. As a matter of fact, I still got it somewhere about the place with the arms broken off it and so forth.
Would they have carnivals around that area?
Well, they had carnivals. You used to come and go. Yeah, that.
Where would they set up tent or camp or whatever?
Oh, any vacant allotment that was about, which there was always.
What would they have at a carnival in those days?
Oh, mainly like hoopla and merry-go-round ride and that sort of thing, and knock 'em down things, and they used to have like pinball with little bagatelle, I think they called them, machines.
Would the carnivals be associated with any particular event or time of year or something?
No, not that I can recall. No, it didn't happen a lot, but just now and again. And I didn't actually see this. I heard this from the family. My uncle, he had one of these bagatelle machines that you play, and I think if they got a certain score, they won a prize, and the police come and had a go at him and said, so I was told, that it was a game of chance and it wasn't allowed. And he said, no, it's not a game of chance, it's a game of skill. Luckily, when he pulled the lever to send the ball up, it went where he said it'd go, and they walked away and left him. But I didn't actually see that. That was just the family talked about it.
Did your family have association? You mentioned before the Soul Brothers Circus.
Yeah.
How did your family know? Well, where did they set up the circus for each
Oh, well, they knew them from Grafton, actually, before they came to Sydney. And my grandfather actually had what they call a shooting gallery in the country that he used to travel with. And he was sort of connected with the showgrounds and that sort of thing, and I think that's how the family. Well, one of my aunties, I think, worked in the Soul Brothers Circus at one time. That's how we come to know the family.
And did that circus ever set up camp in Surry Hills?
No, I don't think so. They'd be mainly in the outer suburbs. Maybe as far out as Blacktown and those places where the circuses would set up.
Were there any places in Surry Hills where you weren't allowed to go?
Oh, I guess there was, but I don't know of any, No, I wasn't warned off any areas. Probably 'cause I was too young to.
What about people to avoid? Were there any local characters or identities?
No, not that I can recall. I didn't see any, There probably was, but as far as I was concerned, no.
Were there any eccentrics around the place?
Any eccentrics?
Yeah.
No, I don't think so. Not at that time. I don't recall any. At later years I've seen people around the city, but it was many years later, you know, that I've seen that sort of thing.
When you went to school, what was that like, your first day?
Oh, it was pretty, it wasn't so bad for me because, as I said, my cousin was a teacher and I went with her and I used to come home with her across Cleveland Street because I wouldn't be allowed to go down to Cleveland Street, which was a busy street, on my own at any time. And it wasn't so bad for me, but it was strange to go to school, you know, after being at home with the family and uncles and cousins and that sort of thing. For so,
What was school like? You know, the sort of subjects. Were kids happy there? Was it a happy place?
Yeah, it just didn't seem to be any, that I can remember, any great conflicts amongst the kids or anything. We had a school concert once a year and that sort of thing, and I remember I had to sing in the concert and I had to sing with a little girl, which embarrassed me at the time. I sang an old Maurice Chevalier song, Louise, I think it was, yeah. And so I had to put her up on a sort of a wall and sing Louise to her, and I was very embarrassed about it all.
Did you get a hard time from the kids on that?
Oh yeah, you get shy act from the others, you know. But the concerts were good, everybody enjoyed them. And then when we left Surry Hills, then I went out to Tweedmouth Avenue in Roseberry, and because the Catholic school was away from the main roads and that sort of thing, my mum and dad sent me to that. I wasn't a Catholic, but I stayed there for a few years until about 4th class, I think. And I can always remember the nuns being very strict, and because I was a non-Catholic, I wasn't allowed in the catechism class, as they called it. I was allowed to sit on my own and read a Bible or something like that. And they used to have communion preparation practice, and I wasn't allowed into that, but one day I actually got into it and was promptly sent out.
Was it okay there?
Oh yeah, the school was okay, yeah. I was treated pretty well, you know, and I suppose I was too young to really worry about being excluded from these things, you know. I just took it as a kid takes it. But I remember one afternoon there was the Brady family of boys. I think there was about 3 of them, and the middle-aged one, he used to pick up his young brother from the infants, and he went down this afternoon to get his brother, and the sister said to him, he's been a naughty boy and he's kept in. And he says, well, I'm going home. He says, I want to take him. And she says, well, he can't go, he's being punished. And she said, he's in the room and the room's locked and he can go when I tell him. With that, he pulled out a pocket knife, slashed the nun's wrist with the pocket knife, took the key and opened the door and took his brother home. Because needless to say, he was expelled. But, you know, those things went on in those days too with the schools. But that was the only violent thing I saw at that school.
Was she badly hurt?
No, I don't think so. Just cut across the hand, you know, so that he could grab the key off it to unlock the door, take his brother home.
Getting back, say, to Surry Hills, you know, what sort of neighbourhood was it? You know, was there much industry or was it mostly residential? What was it at that time?
Well, it was mostly residential from what I recall, except, as I said, that opposite where we lived was the Anthony Hordern stables. I don't recall any factories much around there.
Were there a lot of flies from the stables?
Oh, and I don't remember that really, but
Did you ever go in there?
No, just look in the door as you went past, you know.
Were they the horses for their delivery vans?
The delivery vans, yeah.
And did the people who worked there say good day? Were they friendly or?
Oh yes, yeah. Well, all people were pretty friendly around the area. They'd always speak to you.
Well, where did most people work from your neighbourhood there in Surry Hills?
Well, the one neighbour, the brother, he worked at Wrigley's chewing gum factory at Roseberry, I remember, as he got older. I don't recall what the Mr. Douglas did at all. I don't know.
What smells can you remember?
Oh, probably only the manure and that from the stables.
What about sounds?
Yeah, well, the sounds of the horses, you know, the clodding of the horses in the street as they were taken out of the stables.
And if you were to physically describe the area, how would you do that? What would you say?
Physically describe it.
Well, what did it look like?
Oh, did it look... the appearance of it? Well, it looked anything but wealthy. They were all little single-fronted close cottages, all built all on top of one another with almost a shared wall, you know, and then terraces and that sort of thing. But it, from what I remember, that's what it was. It was a sort of a congested area in that respect.
Was it slum-like or was it just congested?
Well, I guess that it could be, parts of it could be what you'd call slum-like, you know, the backyards and that sort of thing could be pretty untidy.
Yeah, was it sort of oppressed or depressing the neighbourhood? Because places can be congested, but they're well cared for, well loved by their inhabitants, and you would never describe them as a slum. I mean, were the places cared for?
Oh yeah, they were cared for. There was no great gardens or anything because there was no room for anything like that. But footpaths and that sort of thing were always hosed and kept clean, and gutters and that, you know, in that respect. It was, but as I say, it was anything but a wealthy sort of area.
Mm. Can you remember any big events that happened when you were living there?
No, not really, no.
What's your happiest memory there?
Oh, I think just being with the family and the visitors, and particularly the acrobat fellow when he used to do the somersaults in the street and so forth. And
did that draw a crowd?
oh yeah, if there was anyone about, they'd soon cross the street to see Mix and learn what he was doing. And I remember I used to go to the football with my father at times, and that was pretty happy time, and particularly as my dad was a great friend of one of the eastern suburbs players, a chap named Chimpy Bush, who was one of the, well, he was the first Australian rugby league player to go to England under a contract, and he got the huge sum of £5 in England for a win, 3 for a draw and 2 for a loss, but they found him a job while he was over there. And we used to go and watch Chimpy play when he was playing with Eastern Suburbs at the time.
What about your saddest memory? Any sad memories there?
No, I think it was mostly a pretty happy time from what I can remember of it all.
Now, you said before that you left in about 32, you left and moved to Roseberry.
Yeah, about 30, 31, 32, I guess, yeah.
What can you tell me about living in Roseberry? What was that like?
Oh, it was I suppose what you'd say, a much more affluent area. It was nice wide streets. We had a bigger house there. We weren't sort of hemmed in with side-by-side houses. There was room for, there was a lawn at the front, and there was room for a garden and so forth.
Why did your father move? Why did your family move?
I really don't know. Because I don't know whether the rent would have been any different at Roseberry, or it could have been a bit more, I don't know. But no, I really don't know why we moved.
Was there the same sense of community at Roseberry that you had at Surry Hills?
Well, we were lucky in that respect, yeah. We had a wonderful neighbour in Tweedmouth Avenue, Roseberry. He was people from England. He was a Scotsman, his wife was English, and became very friendly with them, and I used to have great times with the son, because we were right at the bottom of what you call Tweedmouth Avenue, which was close to the Australian Golf Club, and we could always get into the golf links, and him and I used to go looking for golf balls and be chased by the ranger on horseback for being in there and so forth. Yeah, I had a lot of happy times there, but I remember Mr. White lost his job. He was out of work, and he walked to Wollongong, and he got a job in the steelworks, and the family moved down that way then, and we always kept in touch with him later in life. But,
when was that he would have lost his job?
oh, that'd be in the early 30s, I'd say. Yeah.
If you went there in 32, how long were you mates with his son?
Oh,
About a year?
Until they moved, yeah, a couple of years, I'd say, and always sort of been in touch with him ever since. But,
you were older then by the time you got to Roseberry, so
yeah.
you'd go to the golf course. Where else would you roam around there? I mean, what did the local kids do there?
Well, we used to go to the pictures, the Saturday afternoon matinee at the pictures.
Where was that at? And
on Gardeners Road, what they call the old Marina Theatre, which is now a video outlet. And yeah, we used to go there. regularly.
With other kids?
With other kids to the Saturday matinee, yeah. And then we... there was 2 theatres. There was one further up Gardeners Road, up near Botany Road too. And we mostly used to go to the Marina Theatre, and the family used to go through the week of a night.
What sort of games would the kids play there? Would they be different to what you played in Surry Hills?
No, I think, you know, it was more or less the same. We did have a boy who lived further up the road from us in Tweedmouth Avenue, was a bit of a larrikin. He used to cause a bit of trouble among us, and I remember one time he set up a giant sort of a Shanghai, got off a tree and had it on his front gate with this great, I think he must have got a piece of old tyre tube and made the elastic from that. And he used to fire rocks across the road when we were coming home from school to stop you from getting home. I remember I wanted to really declare it on with him one day, and Mr. White, that neighbour, he come up and grabbed me and took me home. He said, "Come on now, we don't want any fighting here." But I don't know what this fellow, why he did it, but he just seemed to want to cause a bit of trouble.
And was Roseberry mostly a residential neighbourhood?
Yeah. There were some factories down in one part of it where the Sweetacres factory that made all the chocolates and lollies and things, and Wrigley's factory was down. They were in the area where the transport department is now, sort of opposite there, or in that area. And there was, I don't know whether they're still there, the Eveleigh battery factory were there.
Do you know where most people worked who were from Roseberry?
Well, I don't know whether they all worked in nearby factories or not, but a lot of people sort of worked in shops in the city, and
It was a working class neighbourhood, was it?
it was then, yes.
Was it a safe neighbourhood?
Yeah, there was never any problems that I can recall there.
What about Surry Hills? Was it a safe neighbourhood?
Well, to me it was, yeah, and to us, yeah.
What's your happiest memory from Roseberry?
I don't know, I have many happy memories with that family.
What was
And we still used to go out to Maroubra, to the beach and that sort of thing from there. And we had some friends too who had a Wild West show, buck jumping show, you know, and they used to be out at Blacktown, and my dad used to drive us up there. It was like going for a holiday to go to Blacktown in those days in the old car, and we used to spend a lot of time with that family, the Gill family they were. It was like a small circus and buck jumping show, and we'd stay there till all hours after the show, and they'd sit around the campfire, all the performers and the cowboys that were there, and make toast and that by the campfire and have a talk. The adults used to have their tea or coffee, and we'd be all hours getting home from there, then back to...
Did your family go out often to other friends and places like that?
Yeah, they visited a lot of friends, yeah, as they made friends. And
did the whole family go to the beach? Like
yeah.
A big picnic? Or was it
Yeah.
a picnic sort of thing?
Yeah, well, it was my mum and dad and myself and some the next door neighbours, the friends and that sort of thing would go.
What's your most vivid memory from Roseberry?
Well, I don't know whether it was that time, might have been later when we sort of moved across Gardiner's Road into Mascot. I think it might have been, I'm not sure, but there was an explosion in the factory next to the Eveleigh factory, and it was quite a thing. There was shop windows were shattered up on Gardiner's Road, and which was a fair way away from it, and there was a few people quite hurt, you know. They found one fella around in the next street, and different ones were saying, oh, he must have been blown over the roof and that, but he was still alive. He was probably knocked unconscious and walked around there and collapsed, or almost unconscious, and walked around and collapsed in the next street. That must have been the answer to it, I think. But, and also there was a very hot Saturday, but I don't know, this might have been later on, when the temperature was really excessive, well over the 100 degrees. And talking about remembering things, my dad took us out to Maroubra Beach because it was so hot. And when we got to the beach, there was nobody there was nobody in the water. They were all standing on the wet sand. And my dad said to somebody, what's there, a shark alarm or something? And the fellow said, no. So we went into the water, and oh boy, because your body was so hot, it just felt like ice. And we come straight out, and then we realised why everyone was standing on the wet sand. The other sand was too hot anyhow, and they were all standing on the wet sand and keeping out of the water. The temperature was really excessive. The shop windows broke with the heat at that time too.
Really?
Yeah. I think, from memory serves me, it was about 113 degrees around the Roseberry area then. Yeah.
Was it a struggle for your family to get by? Were they okay financially?
Yeah, I never heard any discussion that we were sort of really on the breadline. My dad always seemed to be able to get by with the wage that he had. It wasn't a big wage, it was...
But you didn't want?
No, we didn't want for anything. We had an old car, that sort of, an old standard tourer motor car.
Is there anything I should have asked that I haven't? Anything you wanted to say?
No, I don't think so. I think you covered everything that I could answer.
Oh. Well, look, thank you very much.
That's all right. It's a pleasure.
Very helpful. Thank you.
Pleasure. I hope you